Scary movies are very hit or miss, and Insidious: The Red Door is of no exception to that rule. As always with my reviews, I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm just going to tell you, what I liked about it, what I didn't like, and at the end, give you my personal and then movie critic rating. Super simple. So let's start with the pros. In all honesty, it is very hard to do scary movies and to do them well. Uh, Typically, these movies have a much smaller budget, therefore, they don't have the best acting, really the best effects. Overall, it's just not that great of a work of art. And that's okay in its own right. But I think you can really tell that difference when it comes to scary movies. Honestly, scary movies are like the Hallmark movies of Hollywood. There are very, very few that can stand up and do well on their own. And I'm saying that to say that this movie does fall victim to the scary movie genre, but it's still good. And let's jump into that real quick. Patrick Wilson does great. Honestly, the whole cast does a really decent job. Yes, some of the characters are annoying. I do think that's the point. They develop and they grow, and that's okay. It does make the earlier scenes maybe a little bit harder to stomach, but that's typical and that's fine. Scary movies do have typically very dynamic characters. There's a lot of growth in them as they come to understand what the issue is and how they're going to address it and fix it. And at the end, everyone has hunky dory and they've resolved the issue. This movie's the same. But the movie's done decently well. For the really small budget it had of around $20 million, they did great. The visuals, I think, look perfectly fine, if not like above average. I enjoyed it. In fact, it looked creepy, and not because it's done badly, but because it's just done so well. And this also, I think, ties in a little bit to, the sound. Sound is very important in everything that is tense and scary and is, environment and setting up this scene. They excelled in this department. I am on edge for most of the movie. The scenes, when you're about to get jump scared, they for sure have your number. I mean, it's down to a science for them. So I'm sure this is really straightforward, but I'm sitting there partially covering my eyes. They do a great job. I already said the acting was good, and it was. I respect everyone. They use the same kid for like all the movies as he's grown up, so I really love that. But acting's good, sounds good. The settings are pretty decent, albeit very small and bland, except for, so I'm not going to spoil anything. There's some aspect of their settings that are okay, and I can't dive more into that without spoiling. But overall, I'd give that a pretty average mark. I also think it's probably important to talk about how much I've enjoyed the Insidious series, and I think this was a good end, supposed end. I believe this is their end of the season or the series. I'm here for it. I liked it. I thought it was a good way to go out. I heard some people not really happy with the ending, but in reality, I dig it. I thought it was well executed. I thought, there was scary throughout the entire movie, and the ending was good to me and for the series. Like for the movie itself, I think the ending was good, and I think for the series, it's reasonably good. And it's probably time. It's time for this section of Insidious to probably be done. Maybe move on to something else. Maybe do another Insidious series, but do something different. We'll see what happens. There's for sure going to be more. I mean, they cost $20 million to make, usually at the top end, and they're going to make 100 probably in the first month. So they're doing fine. Let's talk cons real quick. Not too many that I think are really going to tear this movie down. I did mention earlier I like the acting, and you do, but every character is annoying to begin with, and that is very typical with these movies. And it's frustrating. I can't take points off for it, but that is just something that is always going to kill me. Script writing, a little lackadaisical. Obviously, again, though, when you have $20 million worth of budget, you can't hire the best actors. Sure, they did a good job. I mean, Patrick Wilson does great. He's a real actor. But the rest felt just inexperienced, a little newish almost. It was not fantastic. I said it's passable. I mean, some of them did good, but in reality, I think I've mentioned this a million times. You can really tell a good actor when they're good, and you can really tell bad when they're bad. And I'm not saying these are bad, but they're not great. They're nothing that you're gonna see in a few years in AAA budget films and the biggest and best of Hollywood. This is always going to be a complaint of mine with scary movies, especially with some like this. They are very, very telegraphed in their scares. Me personally, I'm not great with scary movies. Okay, I have to go with somebody, and I know they're coming. I guess that's part of the genre. I don't know. I think there's other movies that do it really, really, really well. They build up these tense scenes and then nothing happens, and so they almost like give you that sense of, okay, it might not happen. Whereas in this Insidious series and in some of these like Blumhouse productions, if they set it up, it's happening. And if they're not going to have it happen, then it's not as serious of a setup. And that's very telegraphed to me, and I think probably to everyone that watches them. So that is something I think is almost missing from Blumhouse productions. But overall, I can't take too many points off for their cons. I just have to give the honest review. And that is that personally, it's just a generic scary movie. Sure, it was pretty decent compared to most scary movies. But in reality, it's just the end of the series. It's a final film, and they did a decent job, but it's an average scary movie. Personally, I'd give it like a 6.5, maybe a 6. It's nothing great, but it's really not that bad. Yeah, I would probably see it in theaters. I think scary movies are just better in theaters. You don't have the comfort of your own home and your own bed, and your own couch, and your own blankets. You got to go be vulnerable in a theater and watch this thing transpire. I do want to also say, though, movie critically, it's a very generic, scary movie. Probably a 4.5. I don't think I could go any lower, and saying 5 feels a little too high. I think it's not great. It's barely average. It's not, there's no redeeming qualities to make it a mark of cinema that you need to go see in a movie critic's eyes. Personally, though, if you've seen the series, this is a good ending. It's worth going to see. It's a good movie. It's just not special. It's just your typical horror film. Anyway, that is our last review before the big features of July come out, Barbie and Oppenheimer. I'm unfortunately traveling this weekend, so I'm not sure when I'm going to see them, but I will for sure see them and get the reviews out when that happens. So, for Insidious The Red Door, let me know if you liked it. Let me know your thoughts on it. But in the meantime, have a good one.